Hey guys, what's up? Thought I might just get this out of the way before it starts raining. In this video, we're just gonna take a small trip along parts of Scott Road for the upcoming R6 rapid bus route. If you haven't seen the previous video, which I took like 2 years ago, then please go have a look at that as we sort of do an introduction and brief profile of the R6. So what I mean by that is the route, stops, the 319, and other stuff. If this is your first time here, then please consider hitting that subscribe button for Vancouver area transit content. So we're just gonna do the major parts as Scott Road in general has obviously been a pain to navigate in film. And we begin with the southern terminus at Newton Exchange, where as of October this year, they've been at it preparing the east end of the loop for the new bus stop, as well as getting the wiring done for the real-time information. For those who don't know, the current loop is around 10 years old at this point. So it's actually quite a short time frame between them completing it for the 96B line and preparing it for the R6. And this makes Newton Exchange the only bus loop to feature two full rapid bus routes. So you have the R1 and the R6. As you can probably tell by the filming, it's a big mess right now as the construction crews actually hit a gas line while digging. So that's going to add to how messy the 301 is going to be for later, as we'll be using that to do a flyover of the route between here and Scott at 84th. Down at the south end of the bus loop is the completed extension of the bus parking and layovers. And this is much needed as you have your heavy hitters like the 323, 324, 335, R1, 301, and of course the 319. So across a single peak hour, these routes alone make up more than 30 departures, and we're just going by the peak schedule. And also just think about how now we have the 335 outside along 72nd Avenue since 2020, and basically how we have 11 bays to handle 11 routes, not including buses coming in to drop off passengers. So this expanded parking lot for buses will do wonders for the R6. It was a mess getting onto the 301, but eventually we left and got onto that front seat so we can do a bird's eye view at the next location, which is KPU. This stop was the result of combining 128 and 126 streets in winter 2022. It comes with a new crosswalk across 72nd, as well as new shelters on either side of the road. And this is the side of the school where the parking lot is, so there is some criticism to be had about not locating stops closer to the campus entrances. Now these will be dedicated bus stops for the R6, but honestly, as someone who still has to commute to KPU, I'd rather have my stops consolidated with the local network just to be able to have that first option heading to Scottdale or Newton Exchange. I also feel like this is some sort of habit where they're trying not to confuse local and express passengers by separating the stops. For example, there's the 502 and 503 at Surrey Central, where personally it matters more having both options easily accessible in case one doesn't show up or gets full to the point of passing up passengers. But that's my opinion and probably another video topic. And yeah, most other stops have been reconstructed with the yellow tactile pads in front. That said, the signage and real-time info still needs to be installed. Moving on to Scottdale, this is where they'll have the R6 continue down past Scottdale Exchange and out to Scott at 72nd. So for that reason, we're taking a 340 instead. To the left, we see where the dedicated bus lane will head down that center lane and into a protected left turn lane. This section will need quite a bit of analysis as right off the bat, this is the first time we'll be seeing bus lanes down the middle of a street at some capacity for quite some time now, as some of you may remember the old busway down number 3 road in Richmond for the 98B line. Second is that there's no actual stop for Scottdale Exchange. Well, maybe they'll slap a bay number on the stop and call it a day, but just like the original plans, there will be no stop in the actual loop. But that said, thankfully for people taking the R6, there will be another stop located right at 72nd at Scott Road. So if, for example, if you're coming off of 311, 364, or 312, you have that option available. Lastly, Scott at 72nd is very prone to accidents and fender benders, so I hope at least something will be done in the process about that. Switching back to the northbound run on the 301, the middle left turn lane has turned into a center median with not many places to cross the street between here at 76A and 80th Avenue. Now the lane closures for the past year have been the most annoying part, especially as a 301 user. Firstly, you have the major closures for the water main replacement at Scott and Nordell, which pretty much destroyed the 319 schedule for the past year and counting. And even saying destroyed or wrecked is an understatement. Most afternoons, the lane closures would result in like 5 buses showing up at once. And as a transit rider, you wonder how people endure standing on these things for 2 hours a day just to deal with what feels like perpetual construction. And then you have the lane closures for the R6, and let's just hope they are not closing it just for the contractual obligations. Like, it appears done, but it's probably safe to assume that something in the sediment needs to be broken in further in order for it to be safe to drive on. And like, even then, the whole R6 thing is delayed an entire season, and the water main construction at Nordell makes it quite obvious. But case in point, I really hope these lane closures clear up soon. Now, as I said in the beginning, there won't be any coverage between here and Scott Road Station because it's so hard to get by with all the lane closures and whatnot. But for the last spot we need to go over, we have Scott Road Station. Bays 2 through 4 have since closed to install the new stops, so just like what we have at Newton Exchange. Thankfully, unlike Newton, Scott Road has a ton of space to shuffle stuff around since there aren't that many routes. And yeah, that's all I can say for now. There's no official update as to where exactly each end the buses will be leaving, but once that info comes out, please check the community notes and comments section for this video when that gets posted. I guess the next biggest thing is the actual schedule and the projected passengers per hour per direction. If I had to guess, the R6 and 319 should float around the 8 or 10 minute range in the peak hour, and since these are FTN routes, they technically cannot run less than 4 trips per hour or every 15 minutes in the off-peak and weekends. And obviously with the new routes, we have the new fleet. I'm sure there's lots of discussion elsewhere about transit centers and whatnot, but let's not worry too much about that part because I really wanted this video to focus on the construction and everything coming together after so long and even after this multi-year hiatus. But if I were to make an educated guess about the R6, they need around 10 buses to run 6 trips per hour, and that goes up to 12 or 13 for 8 trips an hour. Consider spares, and you're looking at around 15 or 16 articulated buses total to operate the R6. There's some new rapid buses coming in, but also they're removing the R6 from the 240 while freeing up 40 footers for the 319. Now let's have a quick discussion about the existing network after the R6 is implemented. Obviously, the 319 will be staying and operating alongside the R6. And we see this relationship a lot in the TransLink network actually. We have the R3 and 701, R4 and 41, 9 and 99, and 4 and 44 to name a few. For the 301, I don't think that should be touched at all, and mainly because that's the connector between the two KPU campuses at Richmond and Surrey, and it's also a vital connector between Richmond and Surrey in general. Also in the Scottdale area, what they could do is have the 301 outside the loop as well, running alongside the R6. But again, please see the community notes and the pinned comments on this video whenever the official changes get posted. Now that's all for this short update. The 319 has topped the South of Fraser ridership charts year after year, and the transit improvement has long been needed for the corridor. Thankfully, they had the time and space to get around to it, and even then, it's a matter of time before they start adjusting schedules and stops. Again, if you're new, please consider subscribing, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers!